Oh, no.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Susanna, and on behalf of International Council for Circular Economy, I would like to welcome you all to Circular Chat, a talk series that takes place every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Our talk show involves an insightful conversation with people belonging to various sectors and agencies committed to work for a circular economy. We invite people from industries, governments, multilateral organizations, and nonprofits from a particular sector to understand all perspectives. International Council for Circular Economy, also known as ICCE, was incorporated in July 2020 and formally launched in August to function as the first international body in India working on the principles of circular economy. ICCE is a global platform for public and private sector companies, civil society organizations, academic institutions, and business associations. Today, in another session of Circular Chat, we will have a live discussion with Ms Adrienna Zsakay, CEO of Circular Economy Asia. Originally from Australia, she has spent more than half her life working in Asia. Ms Zakay's career has been quite diverse, including the international trade in food and 7 years specializing in Asian food regulations. In 2010, Ms Zsakay became interested in infrastructure and operational design for recyclable resource recovery collection systems, specifically for the Asian region. This hobby resulted in Ms Zakay's founding Circular Economy Asia in 2016, a registered NGO in Malaysia where she is based. In early 2020, Ms Zsakay launched Circular Skills, the world's first online education platform dedicated to skill training for the circular economy. Courses include a Circular Economy Foundation course, the 9 Steps Towards a Circular Business, and the Waste-as-a-Resource workshop. CA's projects include Waste-as-a-Resource and the Asian Plastics and Packaging Agreement. CA also provides consultancy services. Ms Zsakay has a BA in Asian Studies and Politics from the University of Western Australia and has studied international and Asian food law from Michigan State University. Adrienna, we are very pleased to have you with us today.
And I'm very pleased to be here. Thank you.
You're welcome. So, Adrienna, Circular Economy Asia provides professional skills training on sustainability and circular economy. So, what are the new projects that Circular Economy Asia is currently engaging in terms of innovative business models and unique circular design principles?
Well, actually, I'm very excited to talk about my next project, which is Wasteas-a-Resource. It's not specifically involved in the design, circular design, although it does lead into it in an indirect way. And nor does it is involved in new business models. But again, it does indirectly lead into it because we really want to think about different ways of ownership. So as you know, waste is a big problem, and perhaps some of this waste can be reduced simply through different ownership models. But in the meantime, a function of the circular economy is not so much recycling, but the material value, because really everything has an end of life. So it doesn't matter how many lives a product may have, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th life, eventually it will die. And we want we still want to retain the material value of those items and be turned into secondary raw materials for manufacturers to reuse into new products. So the secondary raw materials industry is something that is very interesting and exciting to me. And so that's really where my energies will be in the coming weeks and months.
Thank you, Adrienna, for letting us know about that. Adrienna, in a recent article that you've written on LinkedIn about rethinking the circular economy and what needs to change, you mentioned how it is important to discard the usage of the language of the 3 R's, that is reduce, reuse, and recycle, because it's not enough to effectively grasp the notion of climate change, resource efficiency, resource recovery, inventing closed-loop materials, etc. So why do you think that the concept of the initial 3 R's has become obsolete in the recent years? And what is the next best alternate solution to facilitate the core functions of the circular economy in the business cycle?
The 3 R's is very general. So it's not specific enough. And it was introduced at a time where really perhaps recycling was okay. We understood recycling in a very simplistic way. The action of recycling, that we understood it, was that we were saving the planet. And that's really what most people thought about. Nobody knew, or very few people really knew or understood, that in fact that our most recycling was going to China, and they were the beneficiaries. And sometimes they weren't the beneficiaries because there was a lot of environmental damage going on in the reprocessing of those recyclable resources. So we've just evolved. And because we've evolved, we need to have language that's part of that evolution. And so it's not that the 3Rs is bad, it's just that it hasn't evolved with the complexity of our times. So the world is now very aware that China is no longer, the place where recyclable resources go up. The whole world is very aware of the transshipment of waste. And so we need to have language. But just to let you know, I recently read an article of Tata Steel, who is engaged in the decarbonisation of heavy industries. And so for them, they've got what's called the 4Rs, which is reduce, reuse, remanufacture, and recycle. So what this tells me is that industries are getting very interested about how they can apply language to suit their particular sectors. And so Tata Steel came up with the 4. It doesn't matter. I've got a booklet that has 13. It doesn't, and I've seen some very interesting additions to what I call the circular R's, So, we can get very creative and very imaginative. But what's important is that they should represent a function that we can apply to our daily lives. And that's really what, reduce, reuse and recycle needs to evolve to be part of something bigger and more applicable to our actions and really outcomes.
Absolutely, Adrienna, that's very true. And also in the same article, you focus on a very practical oriented strategy to achieve circular economy, sustainability, and ESG reporting, because it's far more advanced than the current status of the circular economy. With this in regard, what according to you is the current state of circularity practices in Asia, and how do we shift from only teaching and selling the concept of circular economy to actually applying circular models within the business?
That's a great question, Susanna, because I think, and it's a topic that I've become quite interested in as I've been involved in the circular economy full-time now since 2016, is that as a concept, I don't think the circular economy is working as well as it should do. So what does that mean? So how do we shift from a concept to implementation? And again, I come back to the functions of the circular economy. And that's really where we need to focus on. What are the functions? What are the action words that we can use from the circular economy that we can take to industry? So again, referring back to Tata Steel for heavy industries, remanufacture is a circular economy function. And so Tata Steel has embraced that and is applying that function in regards to decarbonisation. So that's a very smart move, but it also provides a practical framework for us to be able to look at. And more importantly, I was looking at jobs in the circular economy, not for myself, but I was just curious. So I Googled circular economy job, and I was quite astounded by the number of jobs that I saw, except the one thing that was common to all of them was simply that most of these jobs were very specific. They weren't about they were really an add-on to an existing skill. So if you were a materials expert, you are now required to understand how the circular economy applies to that specific skill.
Right.
So So we're not seeing this generalization that as a circular economy practitioner, you can go and get a job. In regards to the part of the question that talks about within the Asian context, how are we seeing the circular economy within the Asian context? I think that we've gotten caught up in what was the easy part of the circular economy, the recycling part. And that was the thing that most people understood. And so that was something that they could latch onto and think about how they could apply that. Because when they look at the other functions, repair, remanufacture, repurpose, what does that mean to your general SME? So really that's may seem out of reach to most people. And perhaps repurposing second-hand items isn't always a big thing here in Asia. We like new. We're very caught up in new.
That's true.
So we tended to, and that's not just an Asian thing. Globally, we got caught up in the circular economy being about recycling. But we've also been caught up with the idea that we can design with waste, not design out waste. So I've seen a lot of, many items, eco bricks, plastics stuffed into plastic bottles and turned into bricks. Well, you're just delaying landfill, because at the end of that use cycle, one day that eco brick is going to come down. And so what happens to that eco brick? Can it be, reprocessed? No, it can't be. It'll end up in landfill. So that's really not the circular economy. And there's a lot of that misunderstanding. It's not that the people behind that are bad. They just don't understand the real functionality of the circular economy. They want to do good. They want to reduce waste. They want to be part of solutions. And that's really great. The material, getting involved in materials, closed loop materials, is highly technical and out of the reach of most of general people. So that really needs to evolve. And really what I'd like to see is a much deeper skills development for people who are really interested in the circular economy.
Yes, that's some good advice, Adrienna. Adrienna, considering all the experience you have, we would like to know your understanding of resource efficiency and how can companies embrace it to attract investment and avoid a future crisis?
Okay, so there are two parts about resource efficiency, because really that's also what waste as a resource is about, which I introduced in your first question. So there's two parts of to resource efficiency. One is what we call domestic material consumption. And then the second part is material footprint consumption of that consumption. So I'm not going to go into all those details now, because that's a whole talk in its own right. But anybody who's really interested in resource efficiency and want to play around with some simulation, I think Supana has a link that she's going to give to all the attendees that you can now have a look at that simulation, and you can put in any country you like. But in that simulation, the UN did an analysis, and what they came up with in 2017 prices is that if there was 1% resource efficiency across the Asian region, that would equal 51% of FDI inflows. So what that means is that a 1% increase in resource efficiency would mean that countries would not have to go out and seek foreign direct investment, because they would be making those internal savings directly. So that's 51% of FDI inflows is a significant volume of money. And it also equals 1% of resource efficiency also equals 87% of combined GDP of the least developed countries across the Asian region. So these are huge numbers, 1% resource efficiency. Now, most listeners will go, wow, but the truth is that 1% has to come from somewhere. And that somewhere comes from the millions and millions and millions of SMEs, not, the big businesses, yes, but the big businesses really only represent 2 or 3 or perhaps maximum 5% of an economy. The other 95% of an economy is really within the SME sector. So we have to get that 95% to be resource efficient. Because if all these businesses are not being resource efficient, we're not going to get this 1% saving. So we can talk on the macro level all we like. It's a great conversation. It's a great thing to think about. But the truth is that people like you and me have to go out the door, and we have to go and convince the 95% of industries to embrace resource efficiency. Now, if you're a big company, hopefully you'll be able to use your supply chain so you can make inroads into that 95%. That your 5% could have quite a significant broader footprint but that's what we need to do. We need to really walk the talk in regards to the SME sector and get them to start delivering resource efficiency that will deliver the 1%.
Right, that is absolutely important. So, Adrienna, as we also know, you're a part of Wasteas-a-Resource Logistics Association. So, can you tell us what it seeks to deliver or offer, and how can it assist in the growth of circular economy principles in the market structure?
Well, the reverse logistics underpins the circular economy, because ultimately the circular economy is dependent on a circle, which means what goes out must come back. and it has to come back through a reverse logistics system. Now, so that's the simplistic, the easy answer. The Reverse Logistics Association is an American US-based association that wants to set up an Asian chapter. And so they've asked me to be their representative for a short time. I won't be, the representative for, forever. At least 6 to 12 months I'll be the representative to get it off the ground. But really it's about building an understanding of what do people understand about reverse logistics. How do they see that apply to their business? And let me give you a great example, a very well-known brand. I won't mention the brand. You may be able to recognise it. They had this great program, and they may have had it in India, but they've certainly had it in many other countries around the world, that if you brought back your product or your textiles, your clothes, to this shop, to their shops, and they have hundreds and hundreds of shops around the world, that you would get a little coupon, a discount coupon, because what they wanted to do was that they wanted to reprocess these textiles. Now, when they...
Is that H&M?
Yeah. Yes. I didn't want to mention the brand name. Anyway, so that was the brand name. But when they launched this program here in Singapore and Malaysia, it was very successful. In fact, it was too successful.
Right.
And what that means is that their shops are not designed to be warehouses. Their shops are designed where 95% of the floor space is the shop, and the 5% is just the back room for the staff and for the deliveries and for small storage areas before the products are put out into the showroom. Now, when you have a very successful campaign, all of a sudden you have a reverse logistics problem, because you have too many textiles or too many clothes in a shop with no storage space.
Right.
So if they so they didn't have at the beginning, I didn't know how well it would work. And it worked very well, but it worked so well that it created a problem for them. But it's really a reverse logistics problem. So the aim is being able to work with companies and work with brands and say, we can do all kinds of You can have all kinds of great promotions and you can get your products back and you can turn them into secondary raw materials, but you need to have in place a proper reverse logistics system to be able to manage this so that you don't end up having a problem from a very successful campaign. But this is just one small example. If you are companies, part of the circular economy, we want companies to have institute new business models. So where you don't have ownership. So if I buy a computer that I no longer own, but I rent the use of, then I want to be able to give it back to the company. And that's actually a reverse logistics exercise where the company takes the product back and does whatever they like with it. They can repair it, they can resell it, they can take it apart and use all the materials. It doesn't matter. So take-back schemes will become more and more common, where suppliers and distributors will be required to take responsibility for the products. It gives them additional sources of revenue, but it also means that it requires them to have reverse logistics systems in place. So these are new business opportunities for companies, and this is what we want to be able to talk with companies about, train staff, train businesses, provide skills training in these areas so that they are able to capture these opportunities, these new business opportunities in a way that is not disruptive, like happened to H&M.
Right. Thank you, Adrienna, and thank you for explaining that to us in such an easy way. So we are honored to have you with us today, and it was indeed an insightful discussion. And I'm sure the people who watched the session learned a lot about the new and unique projects for innovative business models that CEA is working upon. It is rightly said that appropriate circular business strategies play a significant role in transitioning from a linear to a circular economy. To our audience, we will continue the series with more discussions and with esteemed experts from various sectors for a more circular future. The write-up for this particular session will be shared on our website and on our social media channels. And you can always come back to our YouTube channel to check out more of our videos in circular economy. Thank you so much.
Okay, and thank you so much for inviting me. I've had a very enjoyable time this evening with you, Susanna.
Same here, Adrienna. Thank you so much.